3 News Now this week.
Imagine this. You find out your sister's pregnant, and your other sister, and other sister, and the other sister too. 4 sisters pregnant at the exact same time.
Danielle was first, and then Sarah, and then Michelle, and I was like, oh, thank goodness it's not me. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, me now.
Elizabeth, Danielle, Michelle, and Sarah carried their babies during the pandemic. Grandma Mary was excited but worried for her daughters.
It was scary. It was all scary, but these guys, pregnancy's scary. Having a baby's scary, so praise God, everybody's healthy, and it was perfect.
Everything went well, and they delivered 5 babies. Twins, Henry and Emma, Olivia, Josephine, and Natalie. The deliveries all taking place within 12 days.
Not planned at all. It was crazy.
To Grandma Mary, 5 is just a good starting point. She herself had 12.
It's just a lot of fun having kids. Everybody have lots of kids. A lot of fun.
They call it the miracle during the pandemic, especially because Michelle lost her first baby.
We lost our first at 37 weeks, so it was a little scary at the end, thinking that may happen again. But she's here and she's healthy and a happy baby for the most part.
But now it's all smiles as this family celebrates all their new babies. Grandma Mary hoping for more and more.
The best thing in the whole world.
Reporting in Omaha, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
Well, Big Ten football scheduled to start exactly 1 month from today. The league announcing its new schedule for all 14 teams and also announcing health protocols for the season. Most notably, players will be tested twice a week for COVID-19. Nebraska is supposed to start the season at home against Purdue, will now start on the road at Rutgers September 5th. The Huskers' home opener now September 12th against Illinois, followed by another home game against Wisconsin September 19th. NU then heads to Iowa to end the month of September. The Big Red welcoming Minnesota to town on October 3rd. On October 10th, Nebraska is at Ohio State. Then following a bye week, the Huskers head to Northwestern, then host Penn State on Halloween. After another bye November 7th, NU will play at Purdue for the second year in a row. That'll be on November 14th. Nebraska ends the regular season the Saturday before Thanksgiving on November 21st at home against Michigan State. The Huskers start official practices Friday.
52-year-old Lori Torgerson says much of her summer off from school has been a blur. The Underwood Elementary librarian says she contracted COVID around Memorial Day, which she managed until it hit.
I was sick for 13 days before I actually sought medical help.
Torgerson was rushed to the CHI Mercy Hospital in Council Bluffs. She couldn't breathe and was put on a ventilator.
I knew then I was bad, and I knew I was scared then.
Later, she was put in a medically induced coma for 3 weeks before coming out and improving. Friends and medical professionals call her a walking miracle.
It has been a hard road, but for me, I'm one of the lucky ones, and they keep saying I'm a walking miracle, but I wasn't going to let COVID win. I have other reasons to still be alive.
Torgerson got plasma and remdesivir infusions. CHI Mercy says they've had success sending most COVID patients home alive.
We can't determine necessarily who is going to get super sick super fast. It can affect different age groups.
Lori's seen a lot of support from friends, family, and her nurses, cheering her on at her darkest times and during her recovery. She wants to thank everyone for their love and support and continue on the road to recovery after being so close to losing her life.
It still makes me cry, sorry. You don't realize what an impact you make on people, but I would not have expected them to step up because I'm not usually the one that's in need of something. I'm usually the giver.
Even though she's COVID-free, Torgerson says that she's still pretty weak, so she's going to occupational and physical therapy to make sure she can regain her strength and be able to push those carts of books to students throughout Underwood Elementary. Reporting in Council Bluffs, Jake Wasikowski, 3 News Now.
This letter, called Coronavirus 2 Letter for Midsummer, allegedly came from Family Medicine at Legacy in West Omaha, and according to health experts, it's filled with a lot of outright lies, even dangerous information. Take this one related to treating COVID patients. We have a 100% success rate with hydrochloroquine, zinc, and sometimes Z-Pak and steroids.
I don't think there's any evidence that supports that is the way to treat COVID.
Dr. Ann O'Keefe is with the Douglas County Health Department. She saw this letter just a few days ago, and it's raising concerns in the medical field here in Omaha.
I initially got a copy of it from a physician at Nebraska Medicine who was concerned about it.
3 News Now investigators reached out to DHHS, and it's aware of the letter and says, in general, if there's an issue with a business, facility, or provider, we will review, investigate, and work to remedy the situation based on our findings. We found dozens of reviews related to family medicine. Most center around this letter, some for it, most against.
You know, it's irresponsible and dangerous to put out information like that, and especially if it's coming from a source that has, credentials.
Thank you for holding. This is Elise. How can I help you?
We reached out to Family Medicine at Legacy twice for comment, who wouldn't confirm nor deny the letter came from them.
I can take your name and phone number and give it to our office manager, Marie.
The letter says there's a zilch, zero, nada evidence that masks protect people from the virus. That, too, is a lie.
So this is an easy intervention, and we know that we can reduce transmission, and this is a really key time right now.
We will continue to follow this story for any update, or if the practice will respond, or what might happen with DHHS. Jeff Van Sant, 3 News Now.
Well, a protest was held at Village Point this evening in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. About 60 to 70 people showed up. Organizers say there haven't been many protests on the west side of town, which is why they chose that area for the protest. Organizers say they began planning the protest back in May, and they say leaders from the Culture House Young Progressives of Nebraska, Pro-Black, and the Nebraska Left Coalition helped them organize the event. Organizers we spoke to also tell us that they lined the streets with the names of those who have been killed by police, as well as victims of hate crimes.
We definitely think that there is a misconception that Omaha is this super safe city, that racial tension is kind of a thing of the past here, but the fact is that we live in one of the most segregated cities in America, and that police brutality is present here. And so we need this side of the city, the more predominantly white, wealthier side of the city, to wake up to those facts and to get involved.
And organizers also say it's important to understand the history of the city's racial divide. They hope to have another event in the future. Well, this morning, another group of protesters gathered today, this time outside of the Omaha Police Department. Dozens wrote chalk messages on the sidewalks near police headquarters downtown. We spoke with organizer Mark Vondrasek, who was one of the many arrested last week near the Farnham Street Bridge. He says today's protest was in direct response to last week's events, as well as a social media post from an officer calling water-soluble messages like chalk graffiti. Vondrasek says today's protest was all about peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights.
As long as the government continues to beat up protesters, I've had friends talking about bringing shields to the next protest. People are only going to respond to what the police do. If the police treat us nicely and they work hard to guarantee our First Amendment rights, then we'll see a peaceful process of reforms in this country. But otherwise, the police will make things violent.
Vondrasek also says he'd like to see more funding for housing, health, and education rather than increasing police budgets. Council Bluffs police are asking anyone with information about a recent shooting to come forward. Officers say it happened at Sugar's Lounge around 11:20 Saturday night. They say 25-year-old Benjamin Merksick got into an argument inside the bar, and after that argument, officers say Merksick grabbed a rifle from his car and started shooting in the parking lot. When officers arrived, 2 patrons already had Merksick on the ground. We spoke with some employees at Sugar's Lounge who say they were shocked by what took place.
The bartender came in and said, "Get down," and I was, carrying stuff, and I got down. But, people were running, and yeah, it was scary.
Police say no one was injured. Merksick is charged with attempted murder, intimidation with a dangerous weapon, and going armed with intent.
Last week, Dr. Adipur and Mayor Gene Stother make it clear that Omaha needs a mask mandate, but stopped short of making it official. The governor's office and attorney general's office told them they couldn't legally do it.
My focus now needs to be on public health for this community and not to be caught up in potential court litigation.
Governor Pete Ricketts says if Omaha mandated masks, the state would pursue legal action because he says the city wouldn't be following the law. He He says they didn't pressure Dr. Poor to back off a mask mandate, but he doesn't want to see a person without a mask being considered a criminal.
You're now making a crime that somebody's not wearing their mask. And that's not, that heavy-handed government is not, I believe, the best approach to be able to get people to adopt using masks as part of their everyday life.
Omaha City Attorney Paul Kratz says the state argued all health departments need approval from the state, but Kratz says there's an exception for metropolitan cities so Omaha can do it. He says he absolutely stands by his decision, and Dr. Poor has issued health directives in the past. Mayor Stothert doesn't want to end up in a court battle.
It just baffles me right now when you hear these experts talk, and we have been saying this from the beginning, why there is still even any debate on mask wearing. I've said from the beginning, I hope everybody just does it, and they should be doing it.
Councilman Pete Festerson tells me that there will be 2 mask agenda items on the August 11th City Council meeting. One would be an emergency ordinance that would go into effect immediately if they can get 6 yes votes. The other, a regular ordinance that would take 4 votes. For in Omaha, Jake Wasikowski, 3 News Now. Nebraska Education Commissioner Matt Blumstead says that some schools have talked about delaying the start of the school year, but nobody has actually done it. Governor Pete Ricketts says he absolutely believes that schools are ready to start, some as soon as next week. School districts are preparing buildings for the return of students. OPS has many protocols in place, and the day will look different for all. Districts are offering in-person and remote learning. Governor Pete Ricketts says while some students may do better in an online setting, many other factors are part of why children need to be back in class.
But it's not just about academics either. It's about a variety of different topics. It's about socialization, making sure kids can see other kids. It's about physical health, the physical health that goes on in schools. It's about mental and behavioral health. It's about nutritional. We know that many kids meet part of their nutritional needs in school.
Blumstead says there are criteria that need to be met: high quality teaching, flexibility for districts, and safety. He also says some schools may be making adjustments for teachers that have compromised immune systems, and it's up to each school to do what's best for them.
We said in this moment in time, we were all hopeful that maybe the trend lines would be better for the country than they are right now, but we're going to keep taking these steps forward in Nebraska. I'm absolutely convinced that we'll be able to do that and do that well.
Local health experts have advised against districts opening in person, instead calling for remote learning to start. The governor says they look at everything together.
While we want to take advice from all sorts of different sources, at the end of the day, policymakers have to make that decision about getting kids back in school, looking at the broader picture.
Reporting in Lincoln, Jake Wasikowski, 3 News Now.
Stay connected at 3newsnow.com.